I'm joined today by the duo that is Strung Strummers. They're performing here at the Thomas Crane Library on Sunday, March 31st. March 31st at 3 o'clock. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
I'm so excited to be welcome. You're actually closing out our winter concert series this year. So you have a very important position of honor. Thank you for coming.
Wait a minute, March 31st is spring.
It is a spring-winter
We
concert
hope it will
series.
be spring.
Yes, hold us true. That's right. It's perhaps we're just appreciating winter a little bit. Sometimes we start a little earlier. We're consolidating and doing all the concerts just in March, one after the other, to help people really. You can just plan every Sunday in March. We have a concert here at the library.
Wow.
So,
cool.
5 concerts in all. You're number 5, which is great.
All right.
You've been playing together for a while.
Yes,
Three or 4 years.
3 or 4 years.
I was
few
thinking
years.
about 4 years.
Yeah, maybe.
We've known each other a lot.
a lot longer.
Yeah, you have history, and you've been obviously individually musicians, I'm sure, for a long time.
A long time, yeah.
That's great. How did you get interested in Appalachian music? First, let's even start. Do you describe your music as Appalachian? That's one thing that I've seen it described as, but
Well, it's old time. It's called old time. And
So a lot
old
of,
time
like,
music is
Stravinsky and romantic music.
That's it.
Yeah.
it's the music that was brought here or that
Okay.
developed from the colonization in the 1700s from the British Isles and like Germany.
Okay.
And they came over and they migrated into the southeast uplands of Tennessee and
Okay.
Kentucky and North Carolina and the Virginia and West Virginia. And so there they ran into African American slaves and free blacks who greatly influenced the music from Europe.
So
from
taking the
British.
Scotch-Irish
Yeah.
tunes, and they kind of got here over the pond and started
mixing.
fermenting a bit and doing
Yeah.
their different pockets
So they
and
had
regional
the
differences.
banjo. The banjo was the main thing that was African, and it was a scored instrument that kind of twinned the fiddle and then had a rhythmic thing that went on. The African American phrasing and syncopations profoundly influenced this music. So you have that, and the music, old time music, is a distinct style. It's separate
Okay.
from other styles that kind of grew out of it or were influenced by it, like bluegrass or country, western, blues. Blues is sort of separate, but swing. Those things were very but it's its own thing.
And it sounds like it's one of the first real American musics.
Yeah, I would say
you could
so.
say.
Other than maybe Cajun and then some of the stuff
Yeah.
up in very
Okay.
northern New England. And in New England, here they were, there was some music going on that was influenced by the French, Quebecois,
Sure.
that stuff. And this music is too. And then it started to spread. So it spread a little south into the Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, down there. And then it a little bit further north from, into Maryland, even Pennsylvania. And then the westward expansion dragged it west. And so you have this music in Arkansas and Oklahoma and Missouri and even, Indiana, Illinois. Even in East Texas to some of it. Texas has its own thing.
Texas is its own thing. Yeah, I think
Right,
we
Texas
can
is its
definitely
own
agree
thing.
on
But it's
So that's got a pretty wide.
it's like a third
area.
of the country when it is called old time music.
That's old time. So,
Yeah.
how do you know this? I know that, I assume most of it was passed down from, musician to musician,
Yeah, it was.
generation to generation. I'm sure somebody has done notation. Alan Lomax was famous for his field recordings of some of this. I'm sure he did a lot more.
Well, it's not really a written music.
No.
It's really learned by ear, and there are people have written it down now, some better than others, but
Right.
we don't learn that way.
You don't do it off of sheet music. It's all
Not
oral.
at all, and it's very hard to note. You can get the notes, but it doesn't.
But if you look at it, I have that
doesn't
American
sound
anthology
like-
of fiddle tunes,
yeah.
and it's quirky. You open the
Yeah.
page and you're like, oh, that measure just kind of melts into the other, and it's not
well, there's a
even
lot that happens
number
with,
of beats and
yeah, it's a lot that happens with
articulations.
bowing
yeah.
and phrasing and stuff that
It's slippery. It's hard to pin
It's
down.
hard to, it's not more than just notes,
Right.
which is definitely true for most music, but in this music in particular.
So our first concert, this is fascinating. Our first concert is a singer who was inspired into singing a repertoire from Spain in the Andalusian region, and so much of flamenco is also like that. It's not written down traditionally.
Yeah.
She has a piano player, and usually piano players like to have stuff written, so I suspect they will have some scores. Just the piano players I know, at least, or I think of even famous duos between like Tomatito and Michel Camilo, and Camilo is reading off the charts, and Tomatito has no patience for that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Or at least
A lot of old-time musicians don't even read music.
Don't read, yeah.
No, they don't read. I mean, a lot of people now who are getting into it, the younger people are hot. Some are very highly trained, and they come from, they went to Berkeley, or they've been trained, and then they have to kind of unlearn some of that to learn this, and they have to learn by ear, and they have to get away from the paper, and they, so it's a whole different
now
thing.
in conservatory.
Okay.
And, actually, a few years ago, I wrote a story for Fiddler on old-time music in conservatory.
Okay.
Basically, the crooked road and making its way into the conservatory, because it's an interesting phenomenon.
Well, Berkeley has a
Berkeley's,
traditional music
program.
Block, yeah.
An
Okay.
old time
Yeah.
in particular.
Wow. So are you both involved with Berkeley, or how did you each individually come to this kind of music?
I came to it when I was living in New Hampshire,
Yeah.
and I met Alan Block, who
Okay.
many people know. He was an amazing fiddle player, and he just did his own thing with the old-time music that was an Alan thing,
Yeah.
put his imprint on it.
Which most people do.
And and so that was my first infatuation with old-time music, just getting to know Alan and listening to him. And that was way up in Francistown, this little dance hall
Yeah.
in this little town.
Right, 'cause he moved.
And sitting in with him.
He
and-
moved to New Hampshire. He was from New York.
That's
That's
just
right.
outside Bennington, New Hampshire, isn't it? Francistown, I think.
It's Monadnock region,
Okay,
so
yeah.
not far from Greenfield.
Okay.
and-
Yeah, it's not too far up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's right. He's, from Greenwich Village, comes up to New Hampshire to live the rural life, and just brought a lot of people into the fold.
Wow.
Yeah, there was
Okay.
this music was really in pocket. It was in these little communities. It was a pre-radio, obviously, music, and so, I think Americans were familiar with it, but
This was pop culture.
sort of, but it wasn't spread around that much. And then,
Interesting.
in the great folk music scare of the '60s and '70s, a lot of people got really interested in this music. A lot of Northerners, and there was a huge scene in New York City around it, which is influenced Alan Block, who she's talking.
He had a leather
Okay.
shop in Greenwich Village, and
Yeah.
Bob Dylan would come in
Right.
Yeah.
and stuff. People just wander into the
He was the
shop
man.
and jam with Alan. And
Yeah,
Right.
all
jam
his
with Alan.
people.
I knew Alan.
And what is it? The New Lost City
City Ramblers. There were these
Okay.
revival
What's his
bands. They were one of the first ones.
Okay.
And then more came up, and a lot of them were younger people who were then, baby boomers who were like full of energy and discovering this music. And some of them
Right.
were from the region. There were people,
So they were
it's
touching
kind
the
of
roots and
it's pretty much an unbroken tradition, but a lot of people outside of the region got interested in it back then, like Sarah. It's harder for me to say when that happened,
When it-
because I grew up in a family that were sort of musical, and my parents were dancers, and my uncle is a well-known musician and caller, and I lived in the South. I lived in Maryland, but very near Virginia, so I
Okay.
was vaguely aware of it.
So you just kind of grew up steeped in it.
Not quite. It wasn't like I grew up in a small mountain town where there were old guys playing it, but it was on the radio.
Okay.
For example, I was a little more aware of it, but I was probably.
Were you
didn't
always attracted and interested in it, or was there
Yeah.
something that?
Yeah, fiddle music, or
Okay.
I always was.
Yeah.
And then I moved north to go to college, and then
Okay.
it was all around here.
And you carried some with you, and then
Yeah, it
and
was
learned
all
some
here,
more,
and so then I met people like Alan Block, and it was just like a big thing. Like everybody was into all kinds of traditional music, and this was one thing.
Sure.
Just one of those things.
So do you find, are you still getting exposed to new songs? I mean, with this many people involved, there's got to be such a huge canon.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
and then
never ending,
As it,
the repertoire.
as it grew and got closer to radio, the times of radio, it got influenced by all kinds of other music, not only those fiddle tunes and the banjo tunes, but ballads and minstrel songs and gospel and blues and swing and popular songs too. So the repertoire is vast. There's no way anybody is gonna ever,
Nope.
even people who've been playing it since they were young are not gonna.
The brain's only so big. There's so much you
Yeah,
can
there's
hold.
just so much there. People tend to specialize.
Do you have specialties yourself?
Right now, somewhat, but
Yeah.
a lot of people
Yeah.
we know might specialize in music from a specific area of Virginia or Kentucky
Okay.
or
but
from a certain source. you
or
know,
a certain
music.
source.
Yeah.
Sources are the people who.
With something so big, you have to have
Yeah.
some way to contain it to make it
Right.
like, what is your hook?
But
Otherwise,
most old-time musicians play they'll play a little bit of everything. Like they're interested in, because it's just not. There's a lot of novelty. But right now, I should let you talk about that some more.
Yeah, we're kind of stuck in the Ozarks in a good way.
Okay.
This
This
is
is with Max
Missouri.
Hunter and-
Missouri,
yeah.
because I've been writing this biography of a ballad collector who was from Springfield, Missouri, and he also collected fiddle tunes, which I don't talk a lot about because my focus for the biography is really his song collecting. So Cathy was totally on board with, oh yeah, we can move into that region and do more performance of those tunes from that area, from Missouri and some from Arkansas, that kind of thing. And within Missouri, there's so many different fiddle styles and traditions, just within Missouri. There's a lot of French influence and some Germanic. There are just many different
It was a
pockets.
frontier
even.
for like
Yeah, it was
so
a
many
frontier.
formative years.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. 'Cause
Yeah,
you have
so
people coming all
it's
from
very.
all over the
Somebody else
frontier.
wrote a beautiful book just about Missouri fiddle tunes.
Yeah, and
Wow.
stuff came down from Canada along down
Sure,
the
it's-
river.
that makes sense with the
Yeah.
fur
Yeah.
trade and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of layers even to that.
So do you know what you're going to play for us? I know you're going to play a couple pieces here in the studio, and maybe you want to talk about that when we change and you're playing your songs. But
Sure.
when you
Yeah.
come here on the 31st, do you have some sense of what you were going to bring here?
Probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, we have
we
a
do.
lot. I mean, we have different. We have different set lists for various things.
Yeah.
Is
But
it mostly
yeah.
this Missourian inspired? Or?
Yeah, we'll do some of that definitely.
Some of
because
that.
that's very.
Yeah.
We just did a concert for the Folk Song Society that totally featured that.
Neat.
So we'll
Right.
probably at least part of it will feature some of what Sarah's been doing.
And then we'll do a song that's so old that nobody really knows when they wrote it, which is always my
All right.
particular favorite kind of a song to do. It
Just
just came
part
out
of
of the
the
air.
air,
It's
yeah.
just sort of
Which
always been
one's
there.
that?
I don't want to totally give it away, but it has to do with sewing.
Oh yeah,
So little mysteries. That's
Sewing.
it's
fabulous.
a mystery song.
And
Oh,
it
that's great.
was, all I'll say about that song that I won't name is that when I heard that song, it was a formative moment for me. I heard it performed at the New England Folk Festival, and that was just, I was smitten with
Wow.
that type of old-time balladry from that moment on. It was just very, very important.
Well, that's very special. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So why don't we wrap up this conversation and let you play a couple pieces for our audience.
Alrighty.
Great.
Sounds good.
So now we're going to hear a piece from the High-Strung Strummers, playing here a full set on Sunday, March 31st at 3 o'clock. I look forward to seeing you there.
Out walking one evening in May, I spied a gay couple, they were making their way. One was a lady so fair, and the other was a cowboy who wore the long hair. Well, they hadn't been standing but a moment or two, when out of his budget a fiddle he drew. He tuned up his fiddle and he rosined his bow, and he played a sweet tune that pleased his soul. He played a sweet tune, made the valleys all ring. Hark, hark, cried the lady, hear the nightingale sing. Hark, hark, cried the lady, will you marry me? No, no, said the cowboy, that never can be. With a wife and a cow ranch and children 1, 2, 3. No, no, said the cowboy, that never can be. I'll go to old Mexico and I'll stay for a year. I'll drink the jet water and I'll never touch beer. And if ever I return, it'll be in the spring, just to see the waters glide